What's up, guys? This is TheKephas. What's up, guys? This is TheKephas, and I'm back with another topic of discussion. I've been looking forward to this one. Maybe not as much as the first video, where I was sharing all the exciting things that have been happening in my life. And of course, there was a second one we did where we talked about what's going on with Blizzard and how frustrating things are and how disappointing it is. But I wanted to save this one for last. And that's because it is about World of Warcraft and where I'm at with the game, where I'm at in my head. And I'll be honest, I've been looking forward to this one. I've been thinking about this one the most. Spend a lot of time over the past few months just really thinking about where I'm at. You know, all the stuff happening in my life has given me time to reflect and think. And, you know, I'm a little bit excited, but I'm also a little bit dreadful, I guess, to share this. Because, I don't want to upset anybody, and I know how people are going to react. And so I've been thinking about how I want to do this. Because, you know, of course, I'm just kind of shooting off the cuff. I want to keep this as raw and as real and as candid as I possibly can. And the way I want to do this is I want to take things from the top and just talk about my experience with the game from the beginning and where I'm at now. And so I apologize if this is a long, rambly, ranty video. Before I get into that, I want to go ahead and get the announcements and just decisions that I've made out there now, and then we'll go over what's led me to this decision. And so that way people that don't want to stick around won't have to. If you do, though, I have a lot to talk about. I guess if nothing else, this video is going to be therapy for me, right? So basically, I'm at a point with the game where I do not enjoy the game anymore. I don't like playing World of Warcraft. I don't enjoy it at all. I actually think that World of Warcraft has become a bad game. I don't think that it's that I'm sick of the IP. I'm certainly not. I don't think that it's because I am sick of MMOs. That's not the case. It's not the things happening in my life. It's not where I'm at in my life. It's nothing to do with that. It's not nostalgia. I'm actually enjoying other MMOs, one in particular, quite a lot. But World of Warcraft has become a game that, in its current state, it's not something that I want to play. I don't want to play the game anymore. That's a decision that I've come to for a while now. Long before all the allegations started, ironically long before so many other content creators and so many other people were stepping away, it's something that I kind of arrived at before that. And it's something that I've been wrestling with because of what I do on this channel, but I finally have come to terms, with where I'm at, and so I've been unsubbed for a little while now. I've gone ahead and uninstalled the game, uninstalled Classic, deleted all my mods, and for now, I'm done with WoW. I don't think that'll change for a while unless things drastically change with the game. Drastically, and we'll get into that a little bit as we go on through talking. But I just want to get that out there now. That is my decision. And I'm sorry for those that might be disappointed. People that probably have, many of you have subscribed to this channel because of my WoW content. You might even support me on Patreon because of my WoW content. It's the content that you came here for. And so I understand that if you no longer want to be subscribed, you no longer want to watch or support my content because of this decision, then I understand. I respect you for that decision. You are, free to find other people to watch, of course. You don't need my blessing for that, but I understand. I understand where you're coming from there. I have no misgivings about, I have my expectations set for what this could result in terms of my channel, and I'm willing to accept that result. I would rather, do content for a handful of people when it's content that I enjoy than do content that I hate for lots more people, And I'm at the point where I think World of Warcraft I think it sucks. To be completely candid, I think it's a terrible video game. It's not one that I want to pay money into. It's not one that I want to participate in, unless things change. Then that's how I feel. My YouTube channel was always designed to be a channel about a visually impaired guy who loves video games. That's what I wanted to be about. World of Warcraft was a big part of that. I was happy to make it part of that for a very long time. But that time for me has passed, and so I'm looking to other options, of course, other things that I can talk about and other games I can play. And we'll go from there as time goes on. But I just wanted to let everyone know now, right off the bat, that I'm done with WoW, and I do apologize for people that this might disappoint, but that's where I'm at. So now I guess we can talk about why that is, why it's been such a hard decision, why it's such a big deal for me personally, and just, I guess, let me air out my thoughts, And because I'm kind of shooting off the cuff, I figure the easiest way is to take it from the top, go way back to when it all started, And so I started playing World of Warcraft when when I first watched the South Park episode, Make Love Not Warcraft, which is still one of my favorite South Park episodes. And the reason why that was so successful for me in terms of getting me to play the game is because it actually showed me what the game was. Because up to that point, I thought that World of Warcraft was another RTS game, like the games previous. And they're not, those were never to my types of games. I never really was interested. I remember seeing Warcraft, advertised when I was playing Diablo 2, and I was just like, it's not for me. And so when World of Warcraft came out, I, wasn't really interested and didn't really think much about it. And then I saw what the game was. It was this crazy open world game where it's an RPG where you level up and there are tons of other characters and there are cities and towns and I was blown away at the time because I had never heard of anything like that. So when I discovered what World of Warcraft was, I jumped right in. And so right at the end of 2006, right before the release of Burning Crusade, I purchased and subscribed to World of Warcraft, and off to the races we went. Now, I didn't know what Burning Crusade was for a very long time from when I first started playing. I was just casually leveling up, had no idea what was going on, and just, playing the game. I created I think the first character I ever made was a human warrior, of course, and then I switched over to a dwarven hunter, which I played for a little while. And what the thing about me is with games, I do this with all kinds of games, especially ones where there's customization involved. I tend to restart, or I'll pick a new server, or I'll just hop around, I'll mess with different classes, I'll delete my progress and start over again. It's a weird thing that I do. I did it with Valheim a ton, I've done it with Minecraft, and no matter how much time I invest, if I feel the need to start over, I will. I mean, I've restarted Pokemon Sword and Shield 5 times. It's ridiculous. I don't know why I do that, but I did that with WoW. I created tons of characters. Still something I do to this day when I play these types of games. I love making alts. And so eventually, I settled on a Night Elf Hunter. It's weird, I know, but that was my character. That was my original main that I stuck with permanently to level up to max. And it's funny because at the time, when all this was going on, I was, in my real life, I was in the middle of college. I was actually doing two colleges at once. I was doing at-home Bible college to become a pastor, become a minister. And I was also going to a community college to become a graphic designer, or I guess a desktop publisher, visual communications, just a minor associate's degree, nothing crazy. And so I was doing that. I was attending church on the regular on Sundays and Wednesdays. I was going to college 4 days a week. I was doing home college, and I was also taking kung fu courses once a week. So I also was doing that. And when I wasn't doing any of those things, I was playing World of Warcraft. Believe it or not, I was still, with all that going on, I was still playing a lot of World of Warcraft. I was taking my laptop with me everywhere. I played it at school. I played it when I would visit family. I played it when I was watching UFC fights with my brother-in-law. I mean, everywhere I went, I was taking World of Warcraft with me. I was so hooked on the game. And, I played the game. I discovered add-ons and made the game easier for me to play because I could use add-ons to increase the size of fonts. I discovered that I could program software to allow me to play with the controller, which made things even easier. And at that point, I was just really in my element because, I wasn't really much of a PC gamer. And so with mods, it made WoW even more accessible. It made WoW even more amazing. And by that point, this was my game. I was no longer interested in any other video game. And this was probably through 2007, 2008. I played exclusively World of Warcraft. I think the only exception was I took a break to play Super Mario Galaxy when it came out, and I'm glad I did because that's an amazing video game. But I digress. So, it's weird to think about because there's so many great games that came out during that time, but I just skipped over them until way later because of my addiction, to World of Warcraft. And so, I leveled up a Night Elf Hunter on a PvP server to level 70. I bought Burning Crusade, leveled up to 70, and it was kind of cool because during that time, I wasn't a part of any guild. I just kind of played, and I ran a few dungeons here and there. I remember trying to get a group for Dead Mines. I remember running that. I remember one time my stepdad wanted me to run with him somewhere, and I had just gotten into the dungeon, which took me an hour and a half to get a group for, and we were going to run the dungeon, and he was so mad at me because I wouldn't leave the game to go help him because he's like, why don't you just pause it? And I was trying to explain it to him. He just wasn't having it. I was like, I'm not leaving. I just spent an hour and a half getting in this group. So he was mad at me for a little bit, and he got over it. But I remember that. And then I remember I found a random group of guys that were running BRD, and I was a hunter, and I had just been, I'm a noob. I'd just been leveling casually, doing quests and stuff, not doing a lot of dungeons. And so I didn't know anything about traps or CCs. And I remember running BRD, and they're like, Hunter, trap the X, or trap the square, or whatever. And I'm like, what's that mean? And honestly, it was cool. They were really nice about it. They helped me. They taught me how to do it. And they're like, you're all good, man. We'll show you. No problem. They taught me how to kite, how to trap. And then I was a CC pro after that. And it just really opened up this whole new aspect of the game. And so, I leveled up my Hunter to 70. And then I realized that I was sick of playing on the Alliance. And I was also sick of playing on a PvP server. So I re-rolled Horde and created a warrior, a Tauren warrior named Caboose on the Feathermoon server. I remember that was a server I played on at that point. So I was playing on Feathermoon as a Tauren warrior named Caboose, and I leveled him up to 70. And during that process, I joined my first guild, Knights of the Old World, and I met a lot of cool people there, people that I even became friends with on MySpace. I don't know whatever happened to any of those guys, but they were fun. We used to raid old raids. We did all kinds of other content together, ran dungeons, and I played with them from the end of BC. I remember doing all the Quell Danos dailies every day. I remember waking up before church, going out to Quell Danos, doing those dailies, and just like making all kinds of money, and just having so much fun with BC. Good times, man. Good times. And so then Wrath comes out, all right, and now I'm getting hooked. Like, now I'm really getting into the game. Like, now I'm running dungeons more often. I'm getting more comfortable. I rolled a Death Knight. I was hooked on the Death Knight. That was back when you could DPS his blood, and he pretty much never died, and it was sweet. And I loved playing the Death Knight. Like, Death Knight was just my new thing, man. I loved every bit of it, and loved the story. Was really getting into the Lich King story. And then I started listening to the Instance podcast. And by this point, like, at first, everything was cool with my guild. We were running all kinds of dungeons and stuff. And then things just kind of imploded, and everybody left. And it's kind of sad, and I was alone again, and I just felt really sad. So I started rolling new characters, and I created a Blood Elf Paladin named TheKephas. And that was where TheKephas was born, in the middle of Wrath. And what's funny is, it was during the time when you could level up insanely fast by doing Battlegrounds. And so I was running Alterac Valley, because that was the one that you would get tons of XP for. You would cap one of the towers, or whatever, and you would get tons of experience. And so whether you won or lost, you were just getting tons of experience. And I think at that time it took me like a week to get from 1 to 80 or whatever. Like, I leveled up insanely fast, and because my guild had kind of disbanded, I just went to a different server. And what happened was I was thinking about this when I was playing my warrior, and I was getting I was really sad because I liked my guild, but everybody was gone. And I was listening to the Instance podcast with Scott Johnson and Randy Jordan at the time, who now works at Blizzard. And Randy said something about how he loved their guild. They had a guild on Earthen Ring named Alea Iacta Est, and he was talking about how much he loved his guild and how much the guild meant to him and how amazing everyone was there and how he trusted people there, that they were the kindest people and they had a good community. And so I looked into it and saw that they took you had to fill up an application, and so found out what server they were on, Earthen Ring. I rolled TheKephas. I joined the server, joined the guild, and I'm with that guild to this very day. And so, yeah, so I joined AIE. I leveled up on Earthen Ring and fit right in. I jumped into guild chat, and I met some of people that I still consider to be really good friends, even if we don't talk as much. I'm friends with a lot of people from my guild on Facebook and keep up and talk to different people. And I even invited a number of them to my wedding. They all lived far away, so none of them could come. But it was more a formality of showing my my love for them. I mean, they're good friends. So AIE meant a lot to me, and at that point is when the game really meant something more than just being a really fun game that I spent a lot of time with. It was a place where I could hang out and have friends, and I made a bunch of friends in AAE. It all started when I was... here's the cool thing about AAE, okay? This is right before Dungeon Finder came out. This is like, Ulduar, was it TOC? Trial of the Crusader, or whatever it was. All the Argent Crusade stuff, the Argent Tournament, all that good stuff. That was my favorite time in the game. And, this is before the Dungeon Finder came out, and so AIE had an add-on called Call to Arms. And so what would happen is the add-on could pick up what was happening in a chat channel that was called AIE LFG, and so people could use the channel to look for group, looking for a tank and healer to run Utgard Pinnacle. And so the add-on was designed kind of like the way Group Finder is, not Dungeon Finder, but the Party Finder or the Group Finder. Very similar to how that runs now is how the AIE Call to Arms add-on was for. So you could find groups very easily through the add-on, and so you would, group up with people that were in the guild, people that had access to voice chat, and, people would, hey, we'll join in Channel 5, we'd hop into Ventrio, and boom, we'd run some dungeons. And so I did that all the time. I ran all kinds of dungeons because people were always looking for groups, and the thing is like, I don't want to dump on the WoW community too much, but I think we all know how things can be when you pug with people in WoW. It can be very toxic, it can be very frustrating, people leave, there's no accountability, so people can be particularly nasty, and I didn't like running dungeons with people that weren't in my guild or people that I knew a little bit or felt comfortable around, so it was a big deal for me to join the guild and have people that I could run dungeons with. It kind of insulated me from the rest of the game and the community that could be very toxic, because in AIE there was accountability. If you were a jerk to people, you would get a reputation and ultimately probably get kicked from the guild, and no one wanted that to happen. So I think that like it kind of drew people that wanted that kind of environment, that wanted things to be nice and friendly. So those types of people fit in, and those are the types of people that you would group up with. And so I loved it, and we ran dungeons all the time. So I ran one dungeon, and it just so happened to be with a group of officers that were in the guild. Didn't even know this at the time. And so we're running Utgard Pinnacle, and we get to the fight with the dragon. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was like one of the big Viking dudes. I can't even remember the names of anything right now, but those big guys, those big Viking-looking guys from Wrath. Gosh, I can't remember the names. He's riding on this dragon. You got to run up the hallway, and then you got to like spear the dragon down or whatever. And he would like blow blue fire on one side of the platform or the hallway, and then you have to dodge and get on the other side. And so what would happen is I would always have a hard time with this fight because I could never tell what the dragon was while trying to do other things because, of course, I'm visually impaired. And so like I would have a hard time unless people would announce it in chat, like, hey, dragon's on the left side, move to the right. So I would hear that, and I would know to move to the right. And so I just asked politely in voice chat, hey guys, sorry, I'm visually impaired, and I have a hard time with this fight. If someone could announce in voice, dragons on the left, dragons on the right, it would be really helpful for me. And yeah, no problem. So they did, and then they were like, dude, you're visually impaired, you're like the top DPS in the group. And I'm like, yeah, I'm playing a paladin, And so like, and I was just being fun and having fun and being cool and not a big deal. And and so I made friends with a lot of officers and made friends with more people and ran tons of dungeons. Joined a raid team, started raiding for the first time on TheKephas, raided Ulduar, and then raided TOC, and then raided ICC for a very long time. And that was the best time in the game for me. I mean, I remember even when Dungeon Finder came out, at first, I was still with the raid team, so we'd run dungeons all the time. We'd hang out in voice chat for hours, just chit-chatting all the time. And it was a good time. I mean, like, because at this point, I'm kind of done with college, and, I'm kind of home a lot because I'm visually impaired, don't live near a bus stop, going to church a couple times a week, and then hanging out at the house all the time. And I was home a lot. I had a lot of cabin fever, didn't have a lot of friends, and I had the game, and I had my friends in the game, and it got me through a pretty hard time. And it meant a lot to make all the friends that I made, and it was just a great time in my life. And when I really didn't know what to do or where to go next in life, I had WoW to help me get through that time and make some good friends. So it meant a lot to me, and that was probably the best time in the game for me. Was basically Wrath of the Lich King. I'd say from BC to Wrath, not just the game itself, but just the experience that I had with the game and things surrounding it are what made it so good. But then, of course, what was the next expansion? Cataclysm. And that's kind of when things started to sort of dip a little bit. I was actually pretty forgiving for Cataclysm because I still had my raid team. But that was when I started to notice some changes because now you had Dungeon Finder, right? And even in a guild like ours where people were cool, it's hard to compete with the Dungeon Finder where you could just group up with whoever really quickly. And so the old way of finding people that to run dungeons was kind of off to the wayside. And so, even officers would say, we've noticed that, ever since Dungeon Finder came out, it's more convenient, but people are a little bit less social. And that was a big part of what made people so social, was the Dungeon Finder at the time. Or the Group Finder, grouping up with people to run dungeons with. And then when the Dungeon Finder came out, people kind of became a little bit less social naturally, because there was a more convenient way to group up. So the game wasn't really bringing people together as much in the same way, whereas it was just, more about, here's an easy way to get into dungeons, which is understandable. I mean, it's nice to not have to sit and try to find a group for an hour and a half or whatever to run a dungeon, when you can just click a button and just wait for a little bit. Of course, that created its own problems of people just AFKing in town to run a dungeon, but, those are, I digress. That's the trade-off, I guess. So of course, Cataclysm suffered at endgame because the developers were so focused on recreating the world, which is, something I understood. I had a lot of fun with Cata. I loved Vashir, even though it wasn't really finished. It had a lot of issues. I loved leveling through it. I loved the leveling experience in Cata. And I was into it for a while. I was into Cata, and I think I stuck around for all of Cata, and then Mists of Pandaria came out. And I loved, again, same kind of thing, right? I loved Mists of Pandaria, but it had a charming story. I love the Pandaren. I love the monks. I think that it's nice to have variety. Not everything has to be sweaty orcs and muscle-bound, whatever. It's nice to have, a lot of variety, and I think that Pandaren had a nice change of pace. And I love the expansion overall. Still raiding, still doing that kind of stuff, but I'm starting to notice the cracks a little bit more. And that now WoW is starting to suffer with endgame. I think one of the biggest things by this point that I really noticed was that, back in Wrath, WoW had a badge system where you could get badges of justice and badges of valor, or whatever they're called, or emblems, or whatever. You can call them justice points or valor points. A system where you run dungeons and you get points, and you can buy gear with those points. And so you could run a bunch of dungeons and get the easier points, or you could get the daily reward of points, or do a raid and get the points, the special points from the raid, and then you could buy even better gear with the valor points, right? So you have the more common points, and then the more rare points. You could buy some starter gear with the common points. You could buy some more powerful tier gear with the raid, with the more difficult points. I guess, if that makes sense. And it was a good system because it gave you something to work towards. You run dungeons, you get these points. It's a great way to level and gear up alts. It's a great way to gear up your character if you're falling behind a little bit, and it's just something to work towards. Especially if you thought about, like, with transmog being in the game, stuff like that. Like, it'd be wonderful to have that system back. But that was a very popular system, and at some point they decided that they didn't want to do that anymore for some reason. I think it started to kind of go away in Cata. Like, you could get a couple of pieces with points, but then other pieces you couldn't for some reason. And as popular as it was, and as much as people loved that the Justice and Valor system, they just decided to never go back to it. For some reason, they wanted something else. I think I know why, and we'll get into it, but I think that was the first real, like, gripe I had with the endgame. Is like, I missed that system. It was good. Why don't we go back to it? I don't understand. And so in this, I just started to notice, like, a lot of changes. A lot of streamlining was happening. Raids were not as... I didn't feel like the raids were as creative. Because, like, I think to this day that Ulduar is the best raid that Blizzard has ever done. I think it's the best raid in World of Warcraft. I think that the introduction of hard modes and the way that you would unlock them was very awesome. It may not be the best thing for, world first groups or like top rating guilds who don't want to hassle with it, but in terms of gameplay and experience, I thought that was awesome. I remember to this day of waiting to push the button for the flame was it not Flame Leviathan, I forget which one it was, but it was Memoron. And then of course, finally getting the DPS down XT's heart, like waiting for the time that we can actually do that, and how cool it was when we finally did. Those are pretty memorable experiences, and there's something that you can't really have anymore because of just nowadays you just click a button on the screen to switch to heroic mode or mythic mode or whatever, and it's just, like, I started to notice that, the game was becoming more streamlined and straightforward, and, this is the game now, and there's not a lot of, like, fantasy, like, I guess not a lot of organic experience to be had in the game. It was very... I don't know how to explain it. Just buy the numbers, buy the books, click menus, wait for dungeons to pop. Of course, they added Raid Finder at this point, which is, actually, I think they added Raid Finder in They had it in I think they had it in the Cataclysm, because I remember my cousin started playing in Cataclysm, and I had been talking about how it took me forever to level up and finish the game, and he was like, "Really?" Because I leveled up in 3 weeks and just beat Deathwing, and to someone who's new at the game, it was like, I just beat the game in 3 weeks. That's weird. Okay, and then he was done. Like, he's like, all right, I'm done, I guess. And that was it. So it's kind of interesting how quickly things changed, but. Anyway, I digress, but that's, around the time I started to notice problems. I started to kind of, like, lose the drive to want to play all the time. I took my first break for, like, months, and it was around Timeless Isle. I remember taking a break. Just wasn't really into it. I loved the expansion, I loved the environment, I just wasn't really drawn to the game as much. I just kind of got bored, and started to notice, like, endgame wasn't as fun. And so I took a break, came back, started making macro guides. I made my criticism video about Pandaria, and that got really popular. And then Warlords came out, and boy, did I quickly miss Pandaria. Warlords of Draenor was, I think, the real eye-opener that things were different now, and that the game was going in a different direction. You had a mobile game called The Garrison. You had a very weak end game again for the third expansion in a row. And the raids were fun, and that was about it. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, you start seeing these other cool features, like updated character models, which is awesome. And you start seeing, like, whenever transmog came into the game, like, that's cool. But basically, WoW is starting to become this game where, I think with Mist, they're like, we didn't have anything at endgame. Nothing really landed, and so why don't we try to add a new system in for people to work on it in-game, and so that's when the beginning of systems came into play. And so you had Warlords of Draenor, and it was Garrisons. That was the system. Apexis grinds, and boy, did it flop. And I made another critical video about the game. Just how involved, how much it was just looking at menus all the time. I wasn't a fan. Then we got Legion. Legion was a step up. I mean, it's kind of hard to get any worse than Warlords, I think. But Legion was a step up, I think. I don't think Legion was perfect. I really don't. I still think that Legion was a lot weaker than a lot of other people might. I think it's the best of modernized WoW. WoW, as we know it now, is less of an organic experience and more of a, here's how you play the game. Here's the breadcrumbs that you follow. Bamboozle, But overall, I enjoyed Legion more. I like the story. I like seeing Illidan come back. I like playing Demon Hunters. I like the Suramar stuff. And I had a lot of fun with Legion. I loved Argus going there. It wasn't perfect, but it was still a lot of fun. And I was more into Legion than I had been anything else. But I still think Legion was weak in terms of this, the way legendaries worked. I like the artifact weapons. I think people were into that. I think it was nice to see the old talent trees come back, to a degree. The class stories, getting class mounts, the solo trials, or the mage tower, or whatever it's called. Those were fun. And of course, then you also had World Quest, which at that point were new, and it was a breath of fresh air from what we had before. Now, it's funny because now you look at it and it's like, oof, World Quest. I'm kind of sick of those, but that's just how things go, I guess. And so then we got BFA, and BFA, I don't even know what to say. It just was bland. Story was starting to get kind of dumb. Really dumb, actually. Really, really dumb, actually. I think, the last great thing that happened in the story was the Illidan stuff. And, that all was pretty good. Seeing Varian die... No, spoilers, by the way. Varian dies, that's a pretty touching moment. Illidan comes back, that's pretty awesome when he kills Gul'dan. And then just, him standing up to Zera, finding out that the light can be evil. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening there. I thought the story was good. Then in BFA, the story just went... It made no sense anymore. It was dumb. Some of the, the more grounded storylines that were happening in the zones were kind of cool. But the overall storyline was just really stupid. I think the last really cool thing that I liked about the lore was the Jaina Proudmoore song, the Daughter of the Sea. I think that was the last thing lore-related that I actually enjoyed. I thought that was really cool. Pretty much everything after that I have not enjoyed. Not a thing. And so, BFA, I played it, I leveled up characters, I liked unlocking allied races, and that's literally it. That's all I liked. I never raided, I didn't really run any dungeons, other than ones I had to do to unlock allied races. I didn't like BFA. And that's kind of where I decided, because I was kind of getting annoyed, you know? I mean, it'd been, like, you have to think about this. The last time I really, truly loved World of Warcraft was Wrath. BFA was, I mean, it was almost getting to, like, a decade, right, of expansions. And, you know, I played it because there were still things to enjoy, even through, like, I mean, I loved Warlords at first, you know? Legion was fun, even though there were things about it I didn't like. It was overall a good expansion. You know, and there were things in BFA that I kind of liked, leveling characters, that kind of stuff. But I wasn't in love with the game like I had been before with Wrath. I was just, the game is different now. It's not as social. It's not as, you know, it's more focused on end-game. Leveling is kind of a whatever thing, and there's not a lot of character, you know, customization in terms of building out your character with a talent tree, and, you know, there's not a lot of commitment to anything. There's not a lot of, you know, just not a lot of things to sink your teeth into unless you're a raider or you like to run mythic dungeons, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'm not into either one of those things. And so I'm getting to the point where I'm like, this game just doesn't have a lot for me anymore. It just, unless I want to run, you know, world quests all day long and, you know, or whatever, or farm for gold, what else is there? So I'd say that BFA was when I really started to kind of think maybe my time with this game is done. But I was enjoying making guides. I was making tons of macro guides, which were helping a lot of people. And, you know, I did the same thing in Legion, and they were doing really good, and people loved my guides, and I liked making them. So I stuck around, and I liked leveling up characters, so I did that. But then I started, like, in BFA is when I started playing Final Fantasy. And this is the thing, I do play Final Fantasy 14 now. I play it a lot. I've been playing it a lot, honestly, for the past couple of years, and I'm just now getting to the point where I'm committing more to it because I'm stepping away from WoW, whereas before, like, I would take a break from WoW to go play it, and then I'd leave FF and come back to WoW to do more guides or do whatever. And so, like, I think I was really into Final Fantasy. I mean, really into it. And then patch 9, was it, or 8.2, the Mechagon stuff came out, and I really liked the Mechagon stuff. I think that was the last really great bit of content that WoW has had. I think that the Mechagon and Nashatar stuff was really good. I was really into that, and that kind of broke me away from Final Fantasy, and I came back to WoW, enjoyed that for a while, and that was the last time I really had genuine fun with World of Warcraft. You know, aside from leveling and stuff like that. So, you know, and so, like, I would break away from Final Fantasy, come back to WoW, and then, of course, at some point in time through all this is when WoW Classic came out. And so, you know, I'm playing a little bit of retail, I'm playing a lot of Final Fantasy, and then I'm playing a lot of Classic. And, you know, there's this thing with the WoW community where, you know, like, there's this weird hatred of Classic players, which I get why sometimes, because Classic players can be really toxic and obnoxious and hating on retail, and then you got retail people hating on Classic. But the thing that I didn't like was just the psychoanalysis that people would have for people that like Classic, including myself. You know, you're going to hate it, you're going to realize how crappy it was, you're dumb for thinking that that old version of the game is better. And then I went and played Classic, and I had more fun with WoW than I had had in years. You know, and it was a really big eye-opener, why I like Classic more, why I like the old, you know, they might be bare bones, but why I liked a lot of the old design. Even though it might be rough around the edges now, and it didn't all age well, and the graphics aren't as good, and there's a lot of issues, still like the game. I still like the investment. I like the old talent system. I like the way I could, you know, the way hunter pets felt. More meaningful. They're something I have to take care of and bond with, as opposed to just a drone that's there. You know, and there's a lot of stuff like that. A lot of, you know, intrigue and just interest that I had with, you know, leveling up classes. You know, even the slower ones. And that became even more apparent with BC because they really, you know, made a lot more classes more fun. They improved a lot of things, but it still had a lot of the older systems. And, you know, playing Classic WoW just helped me realize how much I didn't like retail, how overly streamlined and how not, it's just not video gamey enough. Like, it just feels like I'm playing a game. It's like, okay, playing retail WoW because there's so few things to enjoy. And if you do anything that they don't want you to do in terms of, like, just how you play, like, they design it for you to progress a very specific way, and if you even think about doing anything differently, then it just isn't going to work, or it's not as fun, or if it is fun and people start doing it and they don't want you to, they nerf it or something. You know, and so retail just, it feels like you're playing a game with a friend, and the friend is really bossy, and they demand that you play it their way, and if you try to play it any other way, they get mad. That's kind of what playing retail WoW kind of feels like. You know, and so, like, I was just like, man, I really like playing Classic, and it really shows me why retail isn't as good. And then I'm playing Final Fantasy 14, right? Here's the thing about Final Fantasy 14, and I'm going to talk more about that game because I'm playing it a lot and I'm really into it now. You know, Final Fantasy 14 is a little bit more modern. It's not like classic WoW in a lot of ways. It does have a duty finder. The thing that makes Final Fantasy's duty finder work is that people in that game are nice, right? I used to think that the duty finder was a terrible thing. It was bad for the game. But then I played Final Fantasy 14. I run dungeons all the time, and people are awesome in the game. People are always like, "Hello, how you doing?" We wipe. "Oh, no big deal. We get it. No problem. We're fine." And I'll be like, "Sorry guys, my baby's crying. I had to step away for a second to pacify him." "Oh, you're fine, dude. Don't worry about it. No big deal." It happens all the time. People are like, "Sorry, I had a knock at the door." "No big deal." "Sorry, I messed up on this fight. I screwed up. What am I supposed to do?" "Oh, dude, you're fine. No problem. We'll get it." Like, people are so chill, having conversations in chat. Just people in that game are so friendly. That's why the duty finder works in that game. When you play WoW, and the best that you can hope for is that people don't talk at all, it just doesn't. It's not fun. It's not fun to run dungeons in the game where the best you can hope for is that people don't say anything. Because you're probably not going to get the most pleasant people in general. You're going to get people... I mean, the amount of times I've been kicked from a group in WoW because of some random thing. Who knows what? I got lost. I had lost connection for like 2 seconds and came back in. Or I didn't do enough DPS. Or I said hello. I mean, dude, it's happened. Hey, guys, shut up. Stuff happens all the time in WoW. It's different there. And it's just not fun. Final Fantasy, it's fun. In Final Fantasy, you can buy a house. You can buy a plot of land and build a house. You can get married. You can play every job on one character if you want to. Every class you can play on one character. You can do all the professions. You actually go and craft. There's tons of fights to do. There's all kinds of content that you unlock. Unlocking flying is really fun. It's not just wait until we say you can. You do it right away as long as you go through the content. The story is very coherent. It's very interesting. It's a big part of the game, and you follow a main scenario quest line. And there's just a lot in that game. There's a casino that you can go to and earn currency to buy cool things like hairstyles and play a trading card game. A full triple triad from Final Fantasy VIII is in Final Fantasy XIV. There's so much content in the game. There's weekly challenges, daily challenges. There's so much to do. Leveling up retainers, which is kind of like missions, but better, way better. So it's like the mission table, but way better. And so I'm playing this game, and I'm like, here I've got a game where I level up, it's meaningless. And then I have the end game where I basically just run dungeons with people that are mean, or I run raids with people that are mean, or I do mythic dungeons, which is just dungeons, but a little bit harder. And then here's this other game where I'm unlocking new features as I level up. There's this amazing story happening that's coherent as I level up. I can go buy a house and get that together. I can collect, WoW has this too, but I can collect glamours, which is transmog. I have a transmog chest. I have an inn. I can raise up an army of a squadron and do dungeons with an NPC group and some dungeons. I have tons of jobs to level up. There's all kinds of other things to do, and I can play the controller, and I can also play on PS4, which is freaking awesome. I can play on the console, and it runs really well. Final Fantasy XIV was the first game I ever healed in. I played World of Warcraft for so many years and never felt comfortable healing in the game, even though the game had add-ons, because I just didn't feel confident with the way people are. Final Fantasy XIV, I had no problem. I run dungeons all the time. I love running dungeons in the game. I never wanted to run dungeons in WoW. I love running dungeons in 14. And so between Classic WoW and between 14, I just started to realize, this game, this retail just doesn't have anything for me. There's nothing to it. It's, level up, which is streamlined to the point of it just being a formality at this point. You don't even have to, you get most of your abilities fairly quickly, and then you can go wherever you want, which seems cool, but until you do it, and it's just you're leveling up so fast that you might get through 2 or 3 zones with one character, and then you're done, and then you're wondering why you're even doing it at all, because there's nothing to it, where you you level up in Classic. You're unlocking stuff. You have to go back to town to get more stuff. You have to go learn new spells. You can look forward to a quest you get level 10 to learn how to tame a pet. You look forward to a quest you get level 20 because you're going to unlock this cool weapon or whatever. There's so much more involved. You're playing Classic. You go up to an area where you got to do a quest to collect things. I'm not saying Classic's perfect. It sucks to have to fight things for 30 minutes to get 2 drops. It's dumb. But at least in Classic, like, you don't just run into a pack of enemies and just mow them down like you're not even thinking about it. You're like, okay, I'm going to sheep this guy, and I'm going to pull this guy as soon as he patrols a little bit over, and I got to think about this, so I'm actually engaged with the game. Right? And in Final Fantasy, admittedly, it's pretty easy to level up, but there's tons of stuff to do. There's tons of places to level up. You can do Palace of the Dead, which is like Torghast, but better. You can do leave quests. You can do dungeon roulette. You can just do fates, which are like random events out in the world. You can do side quests. You can do the main scenario quest. You can just, I mean, there's so many other ways to level up. There's the weekly challenges. And I'm sorry that I'm like praising 14 and crapping on WoW, but I'm just saying that these other games have shown me retail ain't got nothing for me. And retail's kind of crap. You know, even Classic alone just reminded me of that. Just how much I prefer the old game. How much everything in the old game mattered. How leveling was so important. And how much it was part of the game. And I never felt like I was having my time wasted. You know, whereas in retail, it's like, you know, you run dungeons, you get a piece of gear. You know, it's not as random. You know, it's not as bad, but like it was bad for a while where like you get a piece of gear. Hey, if you keep doing it, you might get the same piece of gear, but better. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. And so you can run this forever and not get bored, right? You know, it's hard to play a game where it's devoted entirely to raiding and dungeons, and that's it. And that's what they want it to be, and that's fine for people that like that kind of stuff. That's why there are probably tons of people that don't want to hear what I have to say, because you might like doing the raids, you might like doing the dungeons. But for me, I like to play a game that feels like I'm in a world where there's tons of stuff for me to do. There's tons of cool things. I can actually live in the world, right? Or at the very least, I'm really engaged with the game from beginning to end, and I don't feel like my time is being wasted. I don't just check out, right? I'm actually engaged with the game. And I feel like Classic does a fairly good job at that. I feel like 14 does a really good job with that as well. And 14 is a little bit more closer to modern WoW in a lot of ways than it is the Classic, but it just does so many things right. And I enjoy playing 14, you know. I was enjoying playing Classic, but it feels like a lot of the Blizzard nonsense is just starting to get into Classic. And that was kind of like the TBC stuff with the you know, the mounts and everything, and just stuff like that they're putting in there to cash grab. And then all the bots and the boosts and stuff like that just kind of really turned me off, and I'm like, I don't even want to subscribe to this anymore, you know. So Shadowlands is out now, and I never really talked about that much, but the story is even worse. The Sylvanas stuff is nonsensical. The Tyrande stuff is a disappointment. A build-up for nothing, and the storyline is just, it's so fan-fiction-y. It's weird and I don't know, it's not good. I don't think. Some people might like it. It seems like a lot of people don't. And the game just is not fun. There's nothing for me. The Torghast was kind of cool, but there's, you know, I don't want to run Torghast just to get one thing, Soul Ash. Like, it just isn't very fun to me. It's not good at being a roguelike. It's not good at being... It's like the Maw is a cool idea, but there's nothing there for me. There's nothing for me to gain. Like, to me, it's like, just... If you make World of Warcraft, you make leveling more challenging, you bring back the old talent tree so that I have, you know, some customization and things to do. Like, yeah, I know I can go look up character builds, but at least I have options. You know, make leveling more fun. Maybe make the community a little bit nicer so that dungeons are a little bit more fun to get through and people aren't complete garbage all the time. And then, you know, add some new systems in that aren't connected entirely to player progression and player power, like player housing and other cool things that you can do that make it feel like your character actually exists in a world and isn't just there to run dungeons and raids and fill up item levels, right? Like, that's what WoW is. It's just, that's the same thing. It's the same thing over and over again. There isn't much more to be added. You know, it'd be nice if, like, I mean, think about, like, how cool it'd be if, like, you know, because, like, what happens is they add all these systems in for an expansions, and then those systems become obsolete and they don't matter anymore. Like, it'd be cool if, like, the Half Hill Garden and Half Hill still mattered somehow. Like, they kept expanding upon in each expansion. Which, sorry to bring it up again, but it's something they do in Final Fantasy all the time. They expand on features they added 2 expansions ago. You know, something like, another game that does a really good job with this is Path of Exile. Like, they add all kinds of new stuff in, and it continues to mean something on several patches later. It's like, in WoW, here's the new ride, enjoy it for the expansion, and then we're going to tear it down, and we're going to give you another ride. Well, you know, and the new ride's going to be a lot like the old ride, but maybe not as good. You know, remember your artifact weapons? Remember how much that was fun? Not anymore. Remember justice points? Remember how much you liked those? Not anymore. Remember the Half Hill Market and the Half Hill Garden? Doesn't mean anything now. Remember your garrison? Yeah, all the work you did on that? Doesn't mean anything anymore. You know, like, it'd be cool if all those things, you know, you work on them for so long, continue to add more to the game instead of just being so single-minded and here's the new thing. Okay, that's done now. Like, it's not fun to have this borrowed power stuff and these new systems and these complicated systems. And then you've got Shadowlands, which is the worst of all of them. It's just not good. Conduits and covenants and just this, you know, who cares? I could care less. You know, it's a shame because, like, I really like the leveling and I like the new zones, and I thought, like, the individual zone storylines were kind of interesting, and at first I was kind of digging it, but then I just started to look at everything, like Torghast, the mall, and just what I was expected to do, and I didn't want to do any of it. I was like, no, this isn't very good. And I made a decision that if Shadowlands wasn't going to do good, then I was going to be done. I mean, Shadowlands isn't good, and I'm ready to be done. You know, if Blizzard can learn and they can grow and they can change and then they can make WoW a better game, then I might come back. You know, I'm never going to write the game off entirely. I love World of Warcraft. I love Azeroth. I love the characters. I love the art style, and I have such a long history with the game. But overall, I just think that WoW is outdated. I think that the developers are, you know, and I've been talking for a very long time, but there's so much to say about the development team. It's somewhere in between incompetent and like they do it intentionally, and I don't know which it is, because, like, here's what happens, right? It's happening right now with Shadowlands. They'll release an expansion, and it's early access. Like, there's so many things that aren't working, and you've got beta, like months of beta worth of feedback where people say this is not going to work. You know, Azerite armor is not going to work. The Covenant swapping is not going to work. Conduits are not interesting. The mall is not interesting. It needs something more, or whatever. And they give this feedback, and Blizzard ignores the feedback. They release the expansion, people buy it because people are excited, and then people drop off faster than you can say drop off. Like, you know, and it happens every time. And so people are playing to beta test the game after it launches, and then after a year or whatever, but the next patch or the third patch, they'll fix everything, and they'll say, we're listening to feedback now. And then people that have very short memories eat that up, and they talk about how great Blizzard is for finally listening. Oh, things are going to turn around. They're going to start listening. And then they release another expansion, and it happens all over again. And that crap has been happening for years. You know? Like, I was told that Blizzard employees, like the WoW team, watched my old videos where I had, you know, a lot of people from my channel watching, and it drew their attention because so many people were watching my videos of them critiquing how they were listening. They didn't listen to what I had to say. They heard it, but they didn't listen, because if they listened, they wouldn't have kept taking the game down the same path. People have been giving them clues for years. People have been letting them know what they think for years as they continue to bleed subscribers, and they don't care. They think what they're doing is good, and they're just incompetent, or they're in denial, or they're doing it intentionally. And I don't know which one's worse. I really don't. But the story, like, and it's not one thing, it's everything. The systems are bad. The story is god awful, and they won't listen. They just think they know what's best, and it's like, how do you work with this? You know, how do you have Sylvanas say she never serves when that's all she's ever done is serve? She's been serving forever. But you're talking about a character that was in service of the Lich King. Well, she served Silvermoon, and then she served the Lich King, and then she broke free from that, and then you think, okay, now she's on her own, only to find out years later that she's been working with the jailer all this time, serving him, which is basically the same thing as serving the Lich King, because the Lich King was serving the jailer, so Sylvanas never really became independent, and all this time, she's been working for the jailer. And then she says, I will never serve. And you're like, is she stupid? Is she an idiot? Like, is she that ignorant that we're just expected to believe that she's that stupid? Like, you know, it's just bad writing. And then you've got the Tyrande stuff. Same thing. It's dumb. You know, Elune takes Tyrande's choice away by taking away the power, and then later saying, I'm giving Tyrande the choice to choose vengeance. And it's like, she chose vengeance. She's trying to kill Sylvanas, and you took the power away. It's just dumb. It's stupid. It's frustratingly stupid. And I'm not saying that like WoW's story was always top notch before this, but it was not as stupid as this. Okay? And I don't look. I'm just gonna say this. I don't know what it is, but how come that every female character, like they keep wanting to write like this women empowerment stuff? Which I'm all fine for. Have strong female characters, because like I'm gonna bring it up again. They exist in 14. Lots of awesome female characters exist in Final Fantasy 14, and none of them are crazy. How come every woman character in World of Warcraft becomes nuts? Jaina, Tyrande, Sylvanas, Alaria, Yrel. They all go nuts. Why? Why does every female character go crazy? Or get corrupted? Or is like all in her emotions? You know? Is that what strength is? Because that doesn't seem like it to me. You know what was strong? Was when Jaina loves Arthas and looks at him and says, I can't follow you. Because this goes against what I believe in. That was strength. Okay? To look at someone you love and care about and say, no, I'm going my own way. To look at your dad and say, sorry, I'm not following you. I'm going my own way. Jaina was a strong character way back when. Now, not really. Better than she was a couple of expansions ago, where she was all in her feels, you know, and falling apart and all this stuff. But you know what I mean? Like they don't understand. I don't know. It's just. I guess if nothing else, it's a difference of opinion, but that's just a little side rant. WoW used to be one of my favorite stories, and I don't like it now. It's frustrating. I could care less about any of it. It's all trash now. It's fan fiction garbage. The game isn't fun. I wish it was, because I still want to play it. You have no idea how much I want to like WoW. I love the art style. I love the world. I love the music. I love, like, the combat feels good, but overall the game just isn't fun. And I think it has very little to do with the stuff happening with Blizzard. I'm sure that might affect some things. I think it has everything to do with the people that are making the decisions, not listening to feedback, and there is some malicious, I think there is some malicious intentions with how things are done. I do think they intentionally make the game the way they do, and then fix it later, and they continue that cycle, because it has been one too many times now where they'll release an expansion, defying the feedback that they're given, going exactly against the feedback, and then everybody that says what's going to happen, it ends up happening, and then people slog through the game for a year, and then they fix it in a future patch, and then people praise them for it, and then start just smoking that copium. Oh, things are going to be better now, and then they do it all over again with the next expansion. And congratulations, you're buying early access games, and you're paying a subscription for early access games. You're buying and paying a subscription for early access game that also has microtransactions in it, and also has a pay-to-win WoW token in it, where people can buy gold and then spend gold to buy gear or buy boosts. It's what happens. That's what the game is now, and that's another problem. It's what it is. I don't even have a problem with stores. Because, like, let's be honest. Like, look at, and this is the same for Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy store isn't that good either. It's done to pay subscriptions for these games. There is no reason that we should be paying a subscription for any of these games. It's ridiculous. Especially if you're going to have store items. Like, how many MMOs exist now that don't have subscriptions? How many online games do people play that are, hosted? They have servers for them that you don't pay a subscription for. Path of Exile doesn't charge a subscription. It adds new content all the time. In fact, it's a free-to-play game. You play Overwatch and Diablo. They have servers. They have updates. Why do we pay a subscription to play WoW and Final Fantasy? Why does that happen? So, to me, the moment you start paying a subscription for a game that you also bought and has an update every 6 months, why are we going to criticize the store? We're already being dumb. We're already paying money for something that we already bought. But, there it is. So we have a store now. I actually don't mind the store. I would rather there be a game that I have and then there be a store with some items in it than pay a subscription. Unfortunately, the games I like, they do all three. You buy the game, you pay the subscription, and there's a store. So we're just going to triple down. Both Final Fantasy and WoW do this, and it's done. But at least in Final Fantasy, you don't have a WoW token. And I used to think the WoW token was awesome because I could make gold and I could get free game time. And then I started to realize, finally, after I looked at it, got my head out of my butt and looked at it for what it is, people were buying WoW tokens with money, getting gold, and buying boosts and buying gear in the auction house and getting really well geared. How is that not pay to win? That is 100% pay to win. It's been pay to win for a long time now. WoW is a pay to win game. Make no mistakes. You should not be able to buy gold. You should not be able to buy gold with real money. That's a bad thing. And I feel stupid for ever thinking that it was a good thing and even making videos where I said that it was a good thing when it's not. You know, I don't necessarily hate stores. I don't hate cash shops. I don't like them. I'd rather they didn't exist. I'd rather all the items that are in the cash shops be in the game. It drives me crazy that in Final Fantasy, white and black dye are things that you have to buy with money. But there it is. You know, but if you add some mounts in the game that are awesome, and then you add a couple in the story that are also awesome, that's fine. It's when you have, in WoW, for example, a bunch of mounts that are all the same, just crap, like just different variations of the same mount, and then you have this very unique, awesome mouse mount, or bull mount, or hog mount, or, you know, all these other cool, unique-looking mounts that you have to get in the store. It's frustrating. That's just where gaming's been going. I realized that the day that Mortal Kombat 10 came out, and instead of unlocking Goro in the game like you would have done in Mortal Kombat 3, you know, or whatever, or where you unlock characters, Mortal Kombat 4, different games where you would actually unlock the hidden characters, you know, now you just pre-order the game and you unlock the character, or you buy the combat pack and unlock the character. It's not like it used to be, man, where it was an opportunity to add more gameplay. Nowadays, it's an opportunity to make more money. That's where gaming is going. It's not a specific problem to WoW or Final Fantasy. It's just particularly annoying with those games because of the stupid subscription and the fact that you buy the game. That's another side rant. But yeah, it's frustrating. I have a lot of negative feelings, and I just want to let it go. You know, I'm happy to not play the game anymore. I feel bad for the people that, you know, follow me on here that like my content, but I felt like I had to get a lot off my chest. I'm sorry this was so long and rambly and ranty. It's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to go over. But I'm happy to be done. I'm happy to move on. I play a lot of Final Fantasy 14. Maybe I'll do. I would like to do some content on that. And then of course maybe play some other games. But yeah, I'm sorry guys. This is like going on to like an hour-long video. I'm so sorry. It's a lot to talk about. But that's why I started off with, you know, with the announcement. So, you know, if you made it this far and you would like to see, you know, you want to stick around and see what other content I do, that's awesome. If not, I totally understand. It's never going to be your responsibility to help me come up with ideas for content. But if you have any games or any topics that you'd like to see me go over or talk about or play, by all means, let me know in the comments below, you guys. I hope that I didn't upset anybody with this. I just wanted to be honest. So, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is TheKephas. Until next time.